So, maybe we'll fade in.
We can do something.
I've been doing the cold open fade in works good with the little music I have.
Yeah, it's a good
remix.
good track. It's
Thank you.
it's interesting, and I think it's ties the whole thing together.
I like both of them. The 6-pack remix, I'm real proud
Yeah.
of. I like that dubstep ass shit.
Best of Quadra. That's our buddy John.
Yes, it is.
And Crip Sermon. We just talked about them.
Indeed, it is. They're fucking good.
Satan, didn't know they had a new record. I guess.
Satan, the metal band. Satan.
Yeah, I guess so.
What is it called in the court? The court? Something about a court?
Court in the act.
Court in the. I was court in the act.
Yeah, which I don't understand that quite well, but maybe that's some cheeky British humor.
I think you're being a bit cheeky.
Cheeky, Gov. Well,
the cheek of it, really.
The cheek of it.
The cheek of it.
This is the Kings of Punk podcast. A podcast where we talk and disseminate information and knowledge about punk rock and the related genres and scenes, and bestow upon you, our hopefully faithful listeners, some new insights on the world of underground punk music. I am one of your hosts, Tyler Hammer, and with me, as always, is
Jake Razor to your right,
and I'm Mr. Bombs
to the left,
Professor Dr. U.S. Bombs here.
That's what Justin from Speed Plans kept calling me.
Oh
last
yeah,
night.
I remember Jethro saying that.
Jeffrey got me good.
And real quick, I'm going to shout out everyone who's subscribed on Patreon, and in particular our top tier Cop Pod Kingpin subscribers, G and Noise of Varich. Thank you very much to everyone who signed up on there.
Yeah.
Super stoked. We got some new XLR cables, new mics coming soon, stands, pop filters, because that's in the process of editing this podcast. I noticed I don't do some of the bad things that people do with microphones. I don't need a lot of de-essing because my voice is lower, but the plosives, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Plosive. And it's hard when when it's the Kings of Punk podcast. Like, there's lots of opportunities to have it be fucked up.
And I mean, we have the pop filter things on these mics, but
I used it on a mic. Sometimes with me, if I'm really going at it, it doesn't matter.
You can only do so much, and we try to make our podcast good, and we hope you, our listeners, if you like us, so you can subscribe to us on Patreon and get. There's already 2 episodes up there.
Yes, indeed.
That you can listen to, and there's going to be more. We're probably going to do a couple at least 2 a month. I think that's the general consensus.
Probably, yeah.
If we can.
Even if some of them, we can't promise much in terms of the format of them or what they'll consist of, but it'll be like 2 somethings.
2 somethings.
2 somethings. And that also means, we always want feedback from everybody, but certainly on there, we'll make sure to pay attention to that. But definitely on the topic at hand that I just mentioned, if you're kind of an audio guy and you're picky about that stuff, please sound off, because it's podcasts. It's different than mixing other things. Not that I'm a pro at that or anything, but trying to make it good for sure. Definitely, it does. It sounds. I'm not talking shit, but I'm talking a little bit of shit. It already sounds, at the very least, it's easier to hear what we're saying relative to lots of other podcasts I've heard in my fucking life.
Dude, I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna. I'm gonna hold my tongue maybe a little bit, but
I mean, for one thing, it's too many to name, but yeah,
just simply too many to name. But yeah, if you also can join on Patreon for free, and we have a Discord.
We do,
and
I gotta hop in there.
Probably gonna start posting in it more because there's more people joining. But you can join for free and join our Discord, and I haven't been working also the last week. I mean, it feels like I've been fucking working, but I will start posting more stuff now that the end of the year is done and new music is flowing, hopefully soon.
Yes.
And, I will be paying attention to it as opposed to,
I kind of was ignoring the Discord that I'm now a moderator on, because I sort of thought it'd be a fun kind of potential Lord of the Flies kind of situation if I just let it go and let because depending on what tier you sign up for, it let me make it so that people get to do stuff on there, depending on what money they pay. So I'm hoping for a cool little experiment.
Okay. Yeah.
What do you mean do stuff?
Like moderation privileges. I don't know what that means, but it means something. I think it means you can like make new channels in the Discord group.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's stuff like that. I'm on the To Live a Lie Discord a bunch, and people can kind of do that. But yes, this is like kind of a big episode.
Yes,
we're gonna do. We're at back at the old place for this episode too.
Yes.
So it's a little bit more, kind of more laxed in a way. But
yes.
It's been a kind of a fun week. How was we didn't record last week. How was your guys' Christmas?
It was chill. My family is very chill about it. Isn't really a big deal. Like they went and visited my aunt like the weekend before in Philadelphia. My aunt and my cousins, who I am overdue to go visit, but they were doing that. So my parents were kind of like, yeah, we're not trying to do big Christmas shit. Like we're trying to chill. So Darby and I just went over there, brought some White Swan Chinese takeout, and just fucking hung out. It's cool. Nice and easy.
Yeah, we did all our shit on Christmas Eve. And then just hung out, me and my partner, Christmas Day, and I made a ham, and I've been eating it for the last like 5 days.
Came out good.
It came out good. I mean,
nice.
it's a ham. You just like kind of like reheat it,
right?
But ham is really, I fucking love ham.
It can be quite delicious. Yeah.
It's I'm not a fan.
Not a fan.
No,
I can understand.
I mean, I had beef tenderloin for Christmas dinner, so.
Man, we had a bunch of stuff. I brought like a crudité, and my mom got subs, and my aunt and uncle, I guess my aunt, I don't know. They brought meatballs and like sauce and like barbecue sauce, and my brother brought rye bread dip, and
I do like the rye bread dip. I haven't had that in a long time.
It's so good.
Did he bring that because his name is Rye by any chance, or?
No, I think he's just like, it's just easy. But
I mean, it's fitting.
It was so funny because my brother was like, I woke up late, so I didn't have breakfast or lunch, and he was just like eating a bunch of stuff. And my mom was getting mad, just being like, yo, pretty much being like, you have to stop eating all the shrimp. Like, leave some for other people.
Wait, so yeah, that means he's just because he didn't eat. That means he's like, I have to eat everything.
I have to
now.
eat 3 meals worth of stuff right now, and it's like, that's not how your body works.
No, you eat if you're too hungry.
Yeah, not like, I need to. I guess I just.
For it.
Sounds like, yeah, he was just like, I need to eat way too much.
The exception would be if you're like very into weightlifting and or if you are like severely underweight, I suppose you would want to do that.
Yeah.
If you are prone to not eating or forgetting to eat, sure. I to the best of my knowledge, I don't think any of those things apply here. I mean, I know he does. I guess he does have a bodybuilding exhibition coming up soon. So that's probably why he was eating all the shrimp, I'm assuming.
It's just funny. It's just like, I only eat healthy. And it's just like, except for today. And it's like, this isn't like, it's like we had like subs and like shrimp. It's like, this isn't like, it's like, I doubt my brother is eating like kale salads every single day.
No,
and
it's
like
probably
a green smoothie.
What do you I mean, what, like Slim Fast?
No, I don't. I have no idea.
Probably Slim Fast.
But it was, I don't know. It was just funny. My mom.
It's just, yeah.
That pink drink Slim Fast.
It's especially funny to me because I've been doing, not this weekend, but even during the week, 5 out of 7 days a week, I've been doing the intermittent fasting thing to try and lose weight because it's simple. But that has taught me that you probably very much don't need to eat breakfast and lunch if you are smart about it and you make sure you eat enough afterwards. Like, your body will have enough calories that you can make it through, and your body probably needs less calories than you think. At least often it does.
But that's good. You have a good Christmas, Tim?
Yeah, it was
Mr.
pretty
Bombs?
good. Yeah.
Did you do stuff both days?
I did, yeah.
Oh, man. I'm glad. I'm just glad. You know what was annoying? We did have to do stuff. like we had to like go get stuff on Christmas Eve, and I've never done that before really, and that shit is annoying.
Oh, going to the
like
store?
Going to a store on Christmas Eve. It's just like
it sucks. I don't know about that.
It wasn't even like busy. It's not like the places were busy or anything. It's just like the mentality of doing that.
You don't feel
like
I went to fucking. I had to get some last minute gifts on Christmas Eve. It was actually easier than I expected because retail is dying so severely and everyone gets everything online. So, as someone who will not remember to order something, that's great for me. On Christmas, I went and got some sweet treats from the International Food Market in Henrietta, the coolest grocery store in Western New York, probably that I know of. But much of they're open on Christmas because much of their clientele doesn't celebrate Christmas, and that was cool. Always a good shopping experience, and cool that I could go get my Russian ice cream and Turkish delights at the last minute on Christmas. Nice. That was cool.
Well,
and my mineral waters that I needed for the hangover today after being in Pittsburgh for a really good show.
Yeah, I wanted to get to that. You guys went to Pittsburgh. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go. I had some stuff to do. Mm-hmm. I did get tattooed by special guest Connor.
Nice, very nice.
And it's really sick.
I saw a picture. It looks great.
But you guys got it's funny because I brought up wanting to go in the first place.
Yes, it was your idea.
It was my idea. Our friends in Speed Plans were doing their record release show for their
7-inch DUI.
Great 7-inch.
And alongside them was this band called Killing Frost that I have been a fan of for quite some time.
I think you put me onto them.
And then Carp.
The Carp.
And then this band Torsion. And Shooting Pain?
Shooting Pain, yeah. I had never heard them or even heard of them. We listened to them on the way. I was like, oh, snap. I'm surprised I never heard this. This is right up my alley. And then it was. It's that, like, crossover on the, I guess, the punky side of crossover. It was kind of more metal live, which I almost didn't expect. But the demo, I was listening to it, I was like, this is like if Final Conflict was like 20 to 30% more metal.
It had some chug on it.
It's right up my alley. So they were fucking fantastic. Riff-wise, especially. They had fantastic riffs. That's what I'll say for them. The Carp didn't disappoint me. Good, goofy, quirky stuff. Power trio, which can be tough in terms of stage presence, but the thing with them, and this is a good thing to keep in mind for maybe your band or any band you're in, because it is tough not having a standalone frontman and trying to be engaging enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One way to pull it off is to make your music engaging enough that, like, I'm kind of following that a little bit more, and I would say that's the case with them. They've got it kind of, those noodly sort of riffs a little bit here and there. Speed Plans were great as always. Especially at this show, got a great crowd response. Killing Frost might be tied with them for my favorite band of the night, though. I love that band.
Yeah,
Killing Frost
is so good,
dude. Because this is what I said to Cougar from Leaking Head came with us, and I was telling him it's like, as we talked about on this podcast, there's a whole range of bands from, I guess, approximately, I would say, Cro-Mags through Integrity-ish. And there's a lot within that range, but sort of the fundamental impetus for all that stuff is like, let's take metal and we're going to cut out all the fruity stuff so that it's tough, so it sounds tough instead.
Yeah.
Killing Frost somehow did both. They sounded tough as nails, but they had the fruity stuff too. That's hard to do, but when you do it, you're like my new favorite band.
But, I mean, they're Finnish, so of course they have like the secret knowledge. They probably drank from a river. I think some of them are in Forcine too.
They are.
So
another band that does that.
Another band that just does it so fucking well. And like I was telling Toby, because our band Hallucination Realize played a show on Friday, which was great. Just a nice little local metal show, pretty much. I was showing him. I was telling Toby, it's like, yeah, they sound like Sheer Terror, I guess. In that sense where it's like kind of metal, but hardcore still. And then I showed him Sheer Terror because he had never heard them. I was like, yeah, they sound like Celtic Frost. And I played them the first, what's their first record called?
Just Can't Hate Enough.
Yeah, and it's like I was like, yeah, listen to like the third song, and it's like he was like, wow, this is like legitimately the same thing.
He wasn't ready for that.
Exactly like Celtic Frost, yeah. But with lyrics that are about like heartbreak and shit instead of being about
going into the crypt
devil,
of rays.
The crypt of whatever the fucking crypt of rays.
Whatever that means.
I think it's it's like a serial killer. What's his name? Rays.
Sweet Baby Ray's?
No, it's
Ray's wheelchair.
It's not. It's like
Ray.
R-A-I.
Yeah, Ray.
I think it's like. It's some like old
It's probably
motherfucker.
some like fucking
He's an old motherfucker.
Raise the Gills or something like that.
Mesopotamian
fool.
Like I forgot what it is.
Gildy Rise.
Gilda Rays, yes.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
what
yeah,
you're talking
okay,
about.
Okay.
Into the crypt of Rays.
Of Gil. He
Of
should have
Mr.
said
Gil.
into the crypt of Gil.
Yeah, I mean, if you heard Gil, you'd probably be like, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
You Rays.
But Rays, yeah, sweet.
Sweet
Rays,
baby Gilda Rays.
no more chicken fingers.
No more chicken fingers.
No more blues music.
No more blues music. No, I will see. Last thing on that is the Speed Plan 7-inch is great. And in particular, I love on the insert where there's a picture of a car wreck that still has a Getty Images watermark on it.
It's so sick.
We told the singer, and guys, you got to do this. Make a T-shirt with that on it. And in fact, he said he took a picture of the insert with his phone, and he was like, "This picture on my phone. That's what we should use to make the shirt."
Yeah. I mean, now that I would wear.
Damn,
Let me
that's
know,
so good.
motherfucker. You better let me know when that pre-order drops.
Yeah.
I'm all over it.
Come on now.
Well, it's sick that we had a pretty good week, but
Weekend to weekend.
Weekend.
Kind of weird to think that Christmas was like 5 days ago.
Yeah, it's very strange.
I mean, this is coming out probably a couple weeks after Christmas, but hey, it is what it is. But this episode is not jolly at all.
Pretty
I mean,
gloomy.
It's like
Not
not
really.
very. It's not very much in the Christmas spirit. That's for sure.
But going back to, I think we kind of started talking about the UK.
Maybe in the spirit of that one Christmas record. Remember the one with the little kids singing in the hospital?
Oh, yeah. It's kind of like that.
The best Christmas record ever.
Yeah,
The Children's Psychiatric Hospital Choir Christmas record from the late 70s.
that is a good one.
We're going to be talking about the legacy of Rudimentary Peni,
Mm-hmm.
or Penny, as some might say.
As I've heard people say, but it's wrong, but people say it.
So it is confirmed Peni?
Yeah, because they got
That's the plural, right?
Yes, because where the band name came from, just a quick band history, is one of those guys, because they were in school together. Blinko and I think Matthews were in school together, and they had like a biology book that said rudimentary penis in it, and they thought that was very funny.
Like the clitoris is when a child is growing is like a rudimentary penis.
Yes, and they thought Rudimentary Peni would be a good band name, and they kept the band name because everybody else hated it so much. People kept telling them to change it, and they were like, "Well, we're definitely not changing."
Well, I'm glad they didn't change it.
Yeah,
It's kind of a weird name if you don't. It's
Right.
not that weird if you don't think about
I mean,
it.
because people probably don't really know what the plural or the was it pluralized?
The pluralized version of penis.
Yeah.
well, and having the word rudimentary in your band name is kind of crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, if you think about other band names that like are normal, Dead Boys, Speed Plans, Black Flag, Brain Car, Boston, Styx, Black Oak, Arkansas.
Rudimentary. It's 5 syllables right there.
Right off the jump.
Yeah.
And then Peni, seven syllables. What is this, a fucking college textbook?
Yeah, I mean, it might as well be. Cause
Might as well be.
It's
Pretty
a lot
dense.
to take in, and it's kind of hard to, really take it in.
But this is this is a classic band.
Yeah.
You as punk rock listeners are probably fans of them, or you're familiar with them at least.
Maybe you've heard the name.
You've definitely
heard the name.
Definitely a name that I heard a lot when I first got into like hardcore punk, but I want to say, to my blurry recollection, where I really started seeing the name more and hearing it mentioned more was like first starting to, as a teenager, seek out or see or connect with like other punkers in Rochester via MySpace. Like, I remember punker girls around my age that I wasn't friends with having, Cosmetic Plague as their profile song on MySpace that I remember.
That makes sense. It's like a girl thing, right? Cosmetics and...
Yeah, that's there. I remember seeing definitely a band that you could have potentially heard about. I think maybe I did from seeing back patches. This is a patch band.
Yes.
Definitely a patch band.
Right up there with Amoebics and Gauze, the most famous patch bands.
Up there, yeah. Doom.
Doom.
Trying to think of some other ones.
Dystopia.
Now Dystopia is a huge patch.
Maybe
band.
not so much back in the day, but now for sure. Yeah.
And similarly to Amoebics, spoiler alert, maybe or something, like, not to get ahead of ourselves, put it that way, but I seem to recall, like, with Amoebics, I don't know if we were on mic or not, but we were kind of like, it's weird that this is a patch band because they're a weird band.
Yeah, they're not very accessible.
And I'm tempted to... Rudy Peni is probably more accessible than Amoebics, but maybe not by much.
The first few records are. The first 3 records are.
Death Church is a
little bit less.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's... When you compare Death Church to Cacophony...
Yeah.
It's like a flip being switched, and it's like you've now entered your worst nightmare. Versus Death Church is like and I'll get to it later, but it feels like an extension of Farce more than like
for sure.
A little bit, yeah. I will get to our thoughts. I have a little bit of a different opinion, but we'll get to that.
There's a cuckoo coding and then a non-cuckoo coding between their records. So.
But yes, that is perfectly well put. There is like the cowards. There's the cowards and the non-cowards, and the cowards will only listen to like the first 3 records.
Right, because it's like, it's like, oh yeah, this is like what a punk rock band sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. And that's then they fine, I guess.
The 2 after, and they're like, oh my God, no.
Is there an EP like between Pope and Cacophony?
No,
I don't think there is. Yeah,
no.
I did watch some live footage of them in '92. It looked pretty cool.
Yeah, is that the one where Gibby Haynes introduces them?
They're playing Butthole Surfers like on the PA.
I think I've seen that too. Yeah,
that's crazy. That's sick.
That must have been like in England then, right?
Yeah. I don't think they ever played the U.S.
There's no way.
Maybe not. They didn't play very much. They played. I read that in the 80s, in all of the 90s. Prior to that 92 like reunion tour, they played 26 shows.
That's kind of crazy. Kind of crazy. Like sometimes.
I mean, over a 10-year period, that's not a lot.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, they did not. I remember. I did read they did not like playing live.
No, they didn't.
Well,
which I get it. Sometimes it's a pain in the butt.
It's probably worse back then.
And maybe because I mean, I doubt any of those guys. They probably had to hop on the trolley with their fucking gear.
Get on the train. Get on the tube. Is that what they call it?
The tube. Yeah, it's called the tube.
Yes.
Down in the tube station at midnight.
I mean, I think people. I could be wrong on this, but I feel like people maybe would be giving them shit too for not having their Mohicans in order.
No, that is also some background on this band. So we'll get to that. I have some notes here on the formation of this band. I will say, we'd like to complain about how hard it is to get information, but we do our best. This band, genuinely, there is a fair amount of mystery surrounding them. They're kind of oblique in interviews, and they're not the most well documented band, but we do know that Nick Blinko and I believe so they were always a power trio. It's Nick Blinko, Grant Matthews, and John Grayville. John and Nick had been in school together. They got some interest in punk in like 78, 79 period, mostly because John Grayville had gotten a copy of the Sex Pistols record. And the two of them, their first project was a group called the Maggots, for whom they self-released.
Was that with John?
Yes.
I thought it was Matt Cooper. Martin Cooper was in Maggots.
Oh, he's on the record, I think. But John Grayville was in the Maggots when they started.
Okay.
And Nick Blinko plays synth on it the whole time, I think. And because when they formed, they were like there was a zine interview I read about it. I think John had been in the band. I think another guy. They had like a full band, but then people left until it was, I think, just that Matt Cooper dude and Nick Blinko, and that was the 2-person lineup that made the 7-inch. that they self-released, featuring art by Nick Blinko, which will become a
pretty
hallmark of all of this. Excuse me. And even the Maggot, spelled Magits. That was like a little creature he thought of in his head, and the first like handful of 7 inches, or maybe even the first 100, had a little paper doll of one of those in it.
Jeez.
In a
so-called Maggot.
In a Maggot zine with the lyrics and some other stuff, more art, etc. So pretty impressive package for some, like, I believe, teenagers to put together.
And that was released on their record label that they both did, called Outer Himalayan Records, which put out like a few other related bands that they were kind of in. Nick was in this band called the Ass Haters.
Yeah.
He didn't end up being on, I think, the record, but I think that record, their first 7-inch came out on Outer Himalayan.
What is the S in Ass Hater?
Oh, let's see.
couldn't
I'm
find
trying to
that
think.
anywhere.
Didn't even look. I thought it was like the Shatters.
Or like the Shaders.
Or the Shaders. Or was like
It could be literal nonsense.
It's probably just, some...
Probably just total nonsense.
It's probably some baloney.
Well, it's like, what is a leaking head? It's like, I don't really know.
Somebody with a head wound, I
or
imagine.
It could be boogers.
Or maybe somebody who's about to, fucking ejac.
Or, yeah, exactly. Or someone crying.
Right, there's a whole lot. It could literally be anything. That's up for the listener to decide, though.
So, yeah, that was prior to Rudimentary Peni. Let's play and listen to the first song on the Maggots.
Yeah.
I think it's good to know that this is where the journey starts, back in Hertfordshire, wherever the fuck, back in not London, UK, and also not a place I've heard of, UK, which is probably about what you need to know about wherever it is. And we'll hear where the journey starts with the Maggots.
So that was fragmented off of the 7-inch called...
Fully Coherent.
Yes. And a very coherent record, I would say.
Yeah. So they were really young when they did that. I would venture to... we all started playing music pretty young. I would venture to say that's a little different than, like, what any of our bands was like.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
It's wild to do that when you're a teenager.
It's like the single is like 4 minutes long. It's got 4 songs.
Yep.
And they're all kind of like that.
They're all, yeah, totally. And
it's crazy.
And, I mean, it's wild to do that as a teenager, but also it isn't, because it is amateur in the way you would expect from like a kid. It's just not very fun, which is usually what like teenagers like to do with music traditionally. And these guys, I guess, just wanted to make something really miserable. So that was the first thing they did.
You know what it reminded me of, Tim?
What?
Two Dark Boys. Dwizungle Jungen.
Actually, it did sound like Dwizungle Jungen or whatever.
Which thing is that?
That's from Tim and Eric.
Oh, that's...
Like the
we
two
are
German
two dark
guys,
boys.
and they're like, you are pig, you are disgusting.
yeah,
And they play the synth, and it's like...
Wait, is that the one where they're doing... They're like... They have the song about, like, I'm the man who works at the shop or something?
No, that's
different, right?
Gangbang.
That's what... Pushwhip Gangbang is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, that's like... So, like, Pusswit Gangbang is like the Rudimentary Peni to Dwizungle Jungen's Maggots.
Yes.
Which makes a lot of sense. So, at some point they form Rudimentary Peni, I think 1980?
in 1980 over in Abbots Langley, Hertfordshire. One of the few interviews I was able to find, but one that was super insightful. Blinko did an interview in 1982 in issue 1 of the IQ 32 zine. Interestingly, I want to dig more on the zine. It was a UK-based zine, but as evidenced by them using a Necro song as the name of the zine, they were very interested in American punk.
Which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's very weird, and it gets weirder and more, which is notable. So with regards to the formation of the band, he says boredom, the only reason, is why they started. That was per Nick Blinko why they started.
Okay.
When asked about their inspirations/influences, he cites the following. Crass, and this is in 82.
Okay.
So this is 2 years after they had started. So we could backdate which of these even existed when they first started. And I think some of these, we'll just put this in the listener's head and in our heads, and then when we talk about the music, we can maybe see what we hear, so to speak. So he cites the following. Crass, Discharge, Gangrene, The Necros, Saccharine Trust, Minor Threat, The Neos, Dead Kennedys. I believe it's a handwritten zine. It's hard. It says Poisons, I think. The Epileptics, The Worst, The Amoebics, as they were called at the time. Part 1, UKDK, Early Wire, Early Susie and the Banshees, and Teenage Jesus and the Jerks.
Huh. Okay, so Crass makes sense.
Yeah.
They were also, I believe, Farce was put out on Crass's label.
And produced by Penny Rumbaugh, which we'll get to, yeah.
Because, it's interesting because, I'll get to that later. But okay.
I think
Discharge makes sense, too. It's like, okay, they probably maybe even were able to see Discharge.
Probably.
Maybe the two names that stand out on that list are maybe Gangrene and Minor Threat.
Yeah.
Because I don't really hear much of
You said Neos?
Neos, yeah.
That's also weird.
I can hear it.
I think that makes more sense than Gangrene.
Yeah, because what Gangrene was even out around then?
This is Boston,
this is not LA. But dude, think about it.
Man, that's kind of crazy.
Think about it. We're getting ahead of ourselves, but think about it, and you can go back and listen. So the reason it seems weird is because those bands are so much faster.
Yes.
But if you somehow forget about that, like if Gangrene was noticeably less fast for the most part, it would kind of make sense.
Here's my thing. I don't think Rudimentary Peni is not fast.
Yeah, but
I just think they have
fast.
Far more tempo changes than the average punk band around
They
the
do.
town.
But
they're driving, but I wouldn't call them necessarily fast.
Yeah, whereas Gangrene was one of the, and the Neos certainly were the fastest band, but I can definitely hear it Gangrene. I can hear it because they did have the unhinged vocals and those sort of quick, jarring tempo changes that Rudy Peni does a lot. That is something that American hardcore bands like even Minor Threat did. I want to say a lot more than UK bands did.
Yeah, because if you think about the UK 82 beat, in UK 82 songs, they're pretty consistent throughout.
Discharge stuff too.
Discharge never was and we'll play the D beat and then we have this weird slow beat. It's always pretty much consistently the same beat.
Even Crass is their beats are weird, but they don't do a lot of tempo changes. Conflict, whatever. Conflict's a little different, but I think the American hardcore thing, and there was a great blog post I read about this band called Terminal Sound Nuisance, and they made the bold claim that Rudy Peni was the first USHC inspired UK punk band, and that
really, oh man,
I can't really think of another one though. I can't think of anyone else who would cite.
Yeah,
that.
Actually, around that time, that is a good point.
Who the fuck else in the UK gave a fucking fuck about Gangrene?
Right. They definitely weren't sounding like Black Flag.
They were gobbing on Black Flag when they came there. That's what happened. Those kind of the things
to be fair, I think it seems like Dead Kennedys was pretty popular in England.
They were because they played there and they were on that comp, the Punk and Disorderly comp. But and I can definitely hear DKs in RP, but as I will probably start calling them because of their stupid long band name. But
I would say. I mean, I was gonna say. I don't know what. You don't really hear any US influence until like 84, 85 or so.
At the earliest,
like, the first thing that comes to mind is like Heresy.
Probably,
Yeah,
you know,
like the Stupids, whichever one started first, which I think Heresy did. You're right,
84, 85 or something like that.
No,
but,
this list of influences, the American stuff is jarring at first. When I thought about it and actually listened, I was like, I hear things. They're just not the things they were taking from those U.S. bands are not even this. They're like things that we take for granted because U.S. hardcore was like our bread and butter. But like even like the kind of types of guitar leads and shit you hear in U.S. hardcore from back then, like the Greg Ginn kind of modes that he'll play in and stuff. And like that's something that you heard in all the bands he listed there, all the American bands and a lot of U.S. hardcore bands did, but other UK bands didn't really do that. And so I think the list of influences does make sense. There's some other ones. I'd just say this: the Saccharine Trust thing. I was like, okay, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Early Wire, definitely. Susie the Banshees, definitely. It's a great list of bands. Let's say that too. Great taste. And Teenage Jesus and the Jerks. I was like, okay, so you were listening to No Wave, so that's also totally makes sense. We got a little ahead of ourselves, but we saw a big list of bands, so we got a little bit excited. And for those of you who already know this band, you're probably right there with us. I don't know, but yes, to get a little bit back on track, we'll come back to the list of bands and their influences and what we can hear. But yeah, they started in 1980 because they were bored, according to him.
Probably was a boring time to be alive.
In some place
in Abbots Langley, Hertfordshire,
yeah,
they sucked. So they played their first show in '81. In Watford with the two bands you mentioned, S Haters you mentioned, and the other band that ended up having a record on Outer Himalayan Records, a band called Soft Drinks. Per an MRR interview with Grant Matthews of RP, that he did an interview in 2003, and he said they did not enjoy those early gigs. I read in that interview and several other zine interviews where they were complaining about getting shit for not looking like punks.
Oh,
they just wore like sweaters and stuff. Like they didn't think about that at all.
Like a plain tee or
stuff
like that.
And that at that point in England was like enough for them to
kind of be like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah,
like that time. Yeah, like 81. Because we have the burgeoning like UK 82 scene. You have like Skinhead and Oi stuff kind of like really ramping up around that time. Yeah. I mean, you have like, is that when like the New Romantics were like popping off too?
I think that was starting to. All that stuff was starting. Two-Tone, all of it. I mean, Two-Tone had been around for a couple of years, but I think '79 is when all the stuff you're talking about really started making headlines in the UK and being a big thing. But '79 to '81, it would have all been kind of in progress.
Yeah. So I can only imagine with like how this band sounds and like knowing about like how Nick kind of is, like it kind of makes sense that they were like the live setting is not like
well, and really. Also now that I'm thinking about it, I'm kind of connecting some dots. So in '79 you start having all the stuff that you're referring to, which I would assume Nick Blinko and these other guys, based on their music and what I know about them, they probably thought that shit was all pretty fucking stupid. So it would not surprise me if in part because of that they sought out punk bands that weren't from the UK and got I guess the Neo's record.
I'm wondering how they even like got that record to like hear it.
Maybe they saw like something in Maximum. I don't.
MRR probably maybe through Pushead.
I'm trying to think.
He's a fan of that first EP.
Yeah, Nick, if you can hear us, tell us how. Let us know, or anyone else in the band.
Nick, you love interviews, and you want to speak with me. I know you do.
Here's a question. I don't think we usually do it, but I don't think we even asked or answered this. What was your guys' first like interaction or like memories of Rudimentary Peni? Like listening to them and hearing about them. Or did we do that already?
Not really. We kind of did, and then we got a little off track, but whatever. It doesn't
I can't
matter.
really remember like the first. It's one of those bands where I don't think I can remember the first time I've ever heard.
I kind of answered that question, but like you guys didn't say anything, so I assumed you didn't know. Tim, do you know?
I mean, I used to like date somebody who liked them, and I didn't really like them. So
okay, right.
I mean, not that I shouldn't say I didn't like them, but it's just like I had no real interest in.
Right. Okay.
I don't know.
I like I said, I swear this was like a MySpace / Patch exposure band for me initially, and I've gone through phases of listening to them a number of times over the years. I think like the one that like the people that I knew personally seemed to like the most was Death Church, and I read something on the internet as a teenager that was the one to listen to. I listened to that as a teenager. I was like, yeah, this is cool. This is fine. Wasn't that impressed with it. I did, but a little bit later when I was like 17 and I decided to listen to everything on Pushead's Top 100, he had the first EP on there, which might still be my favorite record by them. So I just listened to that a lot, and I've come back to it. That's the one that's kind of remained in periodic rotation for me over the years, is that very first EP, which we're going to just discuss shortly. But I definitely do remember liking them, but again, as I alluded to, being a little confused by how many people liked them. Not because I didn't think they were good, but just because I was like, these people like this band this much? Like, I know these people. Like,
yeah.
Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Maybe it's because they like the weird aesthetic, like the kind of like gothy, like weird.
I think it's a huge
like
part
weird
of it,
girl thing.
It's a huge part of it. Yeah,
I feel like that's how I felt like about with Gauze, because I never really listened to Gauze too much, and then it was like, well, this is like years and years ago.
Yeah,
and it's like seeing patches of them. It's like, do people like this band? I remember one of our buddies said it was a patch band. People don't really like them. Don't really listen to them.
We'll talk about it.
You know who it is.
You know who it is. But and I kind of
remember.
was like, yeah, I guess that must be. I've never really listened to them. Which obviously it's hard to fucking listen to a band that is never really fucking released music in the U.S. outside of like one fucking record label, and never toured the U.S. either. They played several shows in the U.S. like, almost 30 years ago. But then it's like listening to it, it's like, oh, okay, I should have listened to this sooner, because I do really like it, and I feel like RP is kind of in a similar vein, especially after this recent run.
It must be said, and I'm sure will be said again, their aesthetic, which centers around Nick Blinko's art that he draws, is a huge part of the band.
Yes.
And, I, like everybody else, saw those drawings and was like, that's crazy, that's really cool. And definitely helped draw me in. But once I especially heard that first EP, I definitely always really liked
kind of clicked.
And even that one, and since then, and we'll talk about this more too, probably, like, I found, and Farce too, like, even when I first listened to this band and it didn't totally grab me, like, the songs would get stuck in my head. I'd find myself like Teenage Time Killers stuck in my head, or some of the bass lines off Death Church, and definitely some of the songs on Farce. It would be on repeat in my head, and I'd be like, damn, that thing I listened to with the weird art, it must have done something, because it's up there.
Do we want to listen to a song from the first record?
Definitely.
Yeah, we should definitely dive into that.
I have some background on the record too, but we could start with listening to a musical selection. I'm trying to think of Teenage Time Killer is my personal favorite song.
It's a sick song. I was
if you have one in mind, they're all good.
Let me take a look at the track.
What's the one where he does the funny voice?
The one, there's that one.
Oh, that one's good. I'm talking about the one where he's like, Weekend.
Oh,
that's not a fast one, but that one's good.
I'm trying to think.
It's hard because the songs are...
Hearse is really good. I really like that one. I think you're thinking of Tower of Strength.
Yeah, that's a good, not a good one as like a sampler, but it's a really good song. I think Hearse makes sense.
Yeah, let's listen to Hearse.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah, it was Hearse off of the self-titled Rudimentary Peni 7-inch from 1981. Released on Outer Himalayan Records. They released it themselves. Or,
Yeah.
I guess some of them. Is it
No,
themselves,
it was,
I guess? Cause
yeah.
But yeah, it's him.
It's basically Grant Matthews and Nick Blinko's record label, to my understanding.
it's Martin Cooper, who was in the Maggots. Grant, I don't think, was ever involved.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's what it says on Discogs.
Yeah. All right, never mind then. I do know this. So this record came, it's from 1981. This is after they had played their first London gig was in 1981, which I'm sure is a big deal coming from Watfordshire, whatever the fuck shire. They played with Flux of Pink Indians and Subhumans, if I was going to try to find something else that kind of sounded like this from 81, I guess that would be my go-to.
Yeah, I mean, after I listened to like this the other day, and then I was listening to their first couple records, and then I was like, every now and again I'd put on another like anarcho-punk record around that time, I would say. Something that was in the wheelhouse. Yeah. I think I listened to like the Zounds 7-inch.
Yeah, it's a cool one.
And I think I might have listened to like Flux of Pink Indians or something like that. And it's like, okay, because here's a question. What would you classify Rudimentary Peni as genre-wise early on?
A punk band.
Yeah, I guess that. I mean, I could.
That's how I
think the anarcho thing. Yeah. The anarcho thing for them, I think, very much happened by accident.
I mean, I guess you could maybe also say that they were like a hardcore punk band.
That's what people said at the time, and listening to it musically, calling it hardcore punk is the only thing that makes any sense. And I know that in terms of politics, Grant Matthews was interested in anarchism. The other two of them really didn't. It was not really their thing. I think Nick Blinko said something effective. I'm not an anarchist, but I do believe anarchy is coming, something kind of cryptic. I think they that's who they got a gig with in London. And some of the people from Crass and shit took a liking to their band and to this first record that they self-released, which is they just borrowed money from their parents to get it recorded in London and at some studio. Not with the Crass people. It was just Joe Engineer. It was some guy. I have a note about it. He was some geezer who had worked with like some big 70s rock band. Supposedly, this is like the rumor.
Gary Glitter.
But they credit the production to someone named David Kay, which, if I read correctly, and I'm sure our listeners will correct me if I'm totally wrong. Like, David Kay doesn't seem to exist. It seems like they got this engineer guy who they didn't get along with, so they put a fake name on it.
That's really funny.
That seems to be the case. I could be wrong, but
that wouldn't fly now, dude.
Yeah, you would
always credit.
You would get beat up.
You're not crediting.
I would beat the fuck out of Nick Blinko if he did that to me.
I would love to I think about that all the time. The idea of having to credit someone.
Wait, is that a thing that people actually get?
Dude, people get bummed if you don't credit everything involved.
Oh, dude,
you
didn't credit the guy who was hanging out at the studio.
Dude,
you gotta tag me.
It's kind of crazy but people are like, it costs $0 to do that, and you're helping them out, and it's like, I fucking paid that. In this instance. David K, who fucking knows?
Should we also credit the Uber driver to the studio and the hotel? Clerk
the
gave us a room
the halal shop that we got some.
I mean, if somebody hired me to produce something, I would want them to credit me. I would be pissed if they didn't do that. But also,
that's totally fair. I think.
That's fair.
But, if people are on some other oh, dude, you forgot to mention your homie who was there.
But
why would we do that?
Sometimes a cryptic thing where you get a record and it just has almost no information is cool.
I think it comes down to a question of, did someone? This is like what we talked about with Fear. It was a little off topic in that episode, but maybe it is now. But did this person produce you, or is this just like an engineer at the studio?
Yeah,
because that's something that we don't really have anymore. But back then, and this is, I'm sure, what happened with them. They gave money to a studio, booked time, and when they booked time, a guy was there. That's what happened. Of course. And so this record, I think we're starting to already hear some hallmarks. Are going to keep hearing from them. the lyrics to this one, a lot of the lyrics on this are very political, and it's interesting. Grant Matthews wrote most of them, and it's this interesting intertwining of like broadly left-wing political content with dark, cryptic, grotesque nonsense. Like this song, the only lyrics I think are "Evil eye beyond sty and sky, hearse, hobbledehoy in hearse." And those are the whole lyrics.
This song in particular, I think you kind of hear, it's like the beginning of something that you would hear a lot on their later records. Like very minimalist, like song, like lyrical.
Yeah.
Lyrics.
Oh
yeah, like one phrase repeated.
One thing,
like
a few things, like not very much, and then the song is they play it bunch of times. I mean,
I think it's that what you're describing is most noticeable on the Pope Adrian 37.
It's outrageous.
Yeah.
It's outrageous on that one, but at the same time, but like you will hear it kind of throughout their discography, at least up until that. I haven't really listened to most
because they also have songs with like tons of lyrics, not on the Pope Adrian record, but on some of the other ones, even on this record, there's songs where there's a lot of words.
He is fucking jabber jawing the fucking lyrics on some of these songs.
That and musically, this one doesn't have as much of a tempo change as here in some of the other ones, but there's some like kind of rhythmic shifts, and I think that's one of the things that they would have had in common with a band like Gangrene more so than some of their UK contemporaries is like quick switch ups in short little songs, which is not something. And the songs are also shorter than a lot of UK bands. A lot of those bands, I think we talked about in the UK2 episode, they stick to like a pop song structure. It's around 2.5 minutes. These are short little things with a lot of switches incorporated. You don't hear it as much on this song, but there's this. They liked on this record, like on Teenage Time Killer, they'll have kind of aching guitar leads, a little bit eerie. Probably the most distinct thing, his vocals are like anti-vocals. Like he's not too concerned with being on time. He does kind of funny voices sometimes. He sounds on this record. This is why it's probably my favorite one. This is maybe their one record where they fully sound like they're like having fun.
Yeah, I agree.
It's like creepy, but it does sound like they're having fun.
And I mean, there's like parts where like there's like a lead guitar part, but like all it's doing is just feedbacking.
Yeah.
And like, because I think it's generally like just one guitar, but they like overdub like some guitars here and there for like leads and various other stuff. But yeah, like one of the tracks, I forgot which one. Don't crucify me. There is just it's just hey, let's do a solo.
I know.
What if it's just feedback? Yeah. Okay, I guess that works.
And that's like it's the kind of shit that like no wave bands were doing around this time, but like other UK fucking punk bands mostly were not. Maybe like post punky kind of bands, but nobody who would with like a mohawk was doing that much of that in the UK certainly. MRR's take, for what it's worth, from the time they compared this to the Meat Puppets record. It's not as fast, but I can hear it.
I can kind of hear that.
First EP.
I have some reviews
cool.
from our great website called Rate Your Music.
Great website.
An incredible website.
Oh, so these are contemporary geniuses sharing their thoughts.
This is from
some of them are older reviews.
Some of them are older. These are from a couple years ago from Kiss Me in the Gutter. 2 stars. Being their debut release, the defining characteristics of Rudimentary Peni are in an embryonic state here. Quite literally when taking the morbid artwork into consideration. I mean, I guess this person has maybe never listened to anything else this band has done. Their distinct brand of darkness struggles to permeate the cover. However, with only 2 tracks, The Gardener, Teenage Time Killer, really jarring out the macabre aesthetic. By no coincidence, these 2 tracks are the only ones to actually slow things down, which seems to do wonders for the whole Goosebumps bit. Which is also not true for Teenage Time Killer, because like the second half of that song is like really fast.
Yeah.
The remaining 10 of 12 tracks are pretty bog standard punk assault. Nothing to write home about. And this is something, for a little sidestep, people on Rate Your Music love saying that about literally everything. That's like not like the case at all.
This person's annoying.
The guitar and bass are a little too interwoven for my taste. Production issues.
Oh.
And they're far from being fully utilized.
You know they can do better.
And they're far from being fully utilized. But that's punk for you, I suppose. That's so funny. But that's punk for you, I
mean,
suppose.
sounds like it's like they just don't like the genre to begin with.
That's what I'm thinking. It's nothing to write home about if you don't like punk music.
Yeah.
Blinko's hyperactive vocals here don't carry the revulsion or bile their later works would have either.
It's kind of what I was saying, yeah.
The creepy disease elements are just barely present on these other tracks, though. I'll admit it's enough at times to save the odd additional song or two from falling into complete mediocrity. For a debut foot in the door punk type of thing, it's all right. But Rudimentary Peni would go on to do much greater, extraordinary things. I mean, I'd hope that this person is talking about like Cacophony and like Pope Adrian,
probably.
and, like the other stuff.
Oh, Rudy Peni, you fucking morons! Why didn't you hard pan the guitar tracks?
Yeah,
Why did you hard pan the 2 double tracked guitars? I can't tell them
Where
apart.
were the 808s?
I can't tell them apart from the bass.
it's calling it 2 stars is
it's
really
not
funny.
like it's like a 80s hardcore punk EP or anything.
Jesus Christ!
Yeah, it's
what the fuck, man.
Dude, it's so. Oh, I have some very insane reviews later. That
I mean, I have an actual.
What, are they just bad ones? Or?
Yeah, I mean, no. There's some good ones, but there's some bad ones that just make you go like,
Oh,
God
you're an idiot.
damn it, you fucking suck.
Yeah, a lot of that on
Do you
that
have,
website.
do you have written reviews?
Yeah, I have by an actual good rock critic named Mark Prindle who gave this
hell yeah.
8 out of 10 stars. I'm not going to read the whole thing, although it's all very funny. And yeah, by the way, in terms of who did what, Blinko was the he did the guitars and the vocals and the artwork. Grant Matthews I think was the bass player.
Let me see. Grant Matthews bass vocals.
Okay, glad I got that
John
right.
Grieville
played drums. So, from Mark Brindle's review, and finally on my short list of things that made Rudimentary Peni a little bit odd, even though they, at the beginning of their career, had basically a straightforward, distorted guitar/bass/fast drums British punk sound, Nick Blinko's vocal delivery. In most, he screams like a possessed child, a little too fast and high-pitched to be comfortable. In others, he sings lower and slower, like a dying drunk with blood draining through a knife wound out of his body. Occasionally, a third voice will pop up all of a sudden, i.e. a little girl speaks one word in the middle of a song. Sometimes there will be a blast of high-pitched guitar feedback in the middle of that has nothing to do with the vocals. New paragraph. The coolest thing about the vocals is the guitar feedback. End review. So that's his take. And he's right. It is weird that he keeps singing. You know what it reminds me of? Cop Pod favorite Sakevi of Gizm. I'm just going to sing totally differently now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I mean, it's a. If you've never listened to this is a great record to start off with, and if you're a fan of typical punk stuff, you're gonna love it. I guess it's such a typical punk record.
I guess so. Yeah.
If you're a moron like us, you will love it.
If you like stupid, boring stuff,
Yeah, like
where you can't tell things apart, then you're gonna love that record.
Now, 1982. They come out with another EP,
Force,
which comes out on Crass's label. Is it just called Crass Records?
This one was Corpus Christi that Death Church is on is like a Crass Records subsidiary.
Okay.
And this came about because at a Crass show, they had like some kind of compound situation in London.
Yeah.
And the members of the band had given Penny Rimbaud of Crass a copy of the first EP. Rimbaud offered to produce and release another EP for them, and that's what gave us Farce on Crass Records, which I have a fair amount to say about this one here. We should play one of the songs and then jump in.
What song do you want to play?
I mean, Cosmetic Plague was the one that was on everybody's MySpace, and
Yeah.
it is a fucking banger.
How about a reminder?
So let's
Just
rock
as a
that one. Let's
reminder.
rock some Cosmetic Plague for everybody.
Yeah.
All right.
Somewhere in the time when I said it around
Okay, that was Cosmetic Plague.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, good song, and I think this kind of maybe highlights why I don't like this record as much as I would like the first record.
Right.
Is because it's kind of like stripped back a little bit. In some ways.
I mean, you wouldn't be the only one. I mean, MRR at the time said that like this record was better in some ways, but it lost some of its power. I think working with someone from Crass who was more experienced and probably had a more fleshed out idea of how they wanted things to be, had an effect on this record that it makes it stand out from their other stuff for better or for worse. I could totally imagine someone whose taste would cause them to like this way better than all their other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This record does not have a bunch of weird tempo changes. It is that steady driving UK anarcho tempo the whole time.
Yeah.
Everything sounds a little bit, good news for our friend from Rate Your Music. You can tell the bass apart from the guitar. Biggest thing he sounds here, his vocals. I mean, he sounds like a Boston hardcore singer. Like he sounds tough, which is weird. Like, I don't know why Nick Blinko sounds tough on this record.
Maybe he didn't get his tea that morning when he did it.
Like
probably, yeah.
Death Church,
too much tea.
Kind of, it kind of continues that, but like it scales it back a bit much.
Kind of between this and the first record, yeah.
And that's like I think the first thing you hear when what's the first song? Sacrifice, I think.
On this record,
Sacrifice. Yeah. If you play them both back to back, you kind of immediately go, "Oh, whoa, he sounds like kind of pretty different on this one."
Yeah, it sounds way different. I'm like,
not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just one of those things where I guess now knowing that the Crass person was involved in producing it as well, it kind of makes you think a little bit. Like
really producing it. I mean, and the cover art looks like other stuff on Crass Records, albeit with Blinko's artwork on it. The vocals are so different, and the lyrics are really good. This is one with a lot of words on it, but there's a little bit, it's very political, lots of words in line with other stuff on Crash Records. Still, it's a really fucking good record, but it almost sounds like it is a different band than the stuff before this or after it.
Yeah.
Which that's something a producer can do. I don't fault anybody for it. It's just a little different. Although I also know the band was not thrilled with how this sounded.
I can kind of maybe see where they're coming from with that. I will say, I mean, this I think all the records kind of showcase just how good. What's the Matt and Joe or am I John? Matt and John are like the rhythm section and just or Grant and John. Sorry, I can't. They fucking hold it down.
The bass playing is excellent.
The drumming is like so good too.
There's one thing they have in common with other UK punk bands that you don't really hear in American stuff from this era is where the bass is really driving things melodically and is playing like melodies you don't hear elsewhere.
Yeah.
Like you hear that in Arco Punk from the UK, you hear it in UK 82. Later on, you hear it in like American, like, Bad Religion coded kind of punk and like street punk. But 80s hardcore from America, like you don't hear that as much. I don't know why that is. My cockamamie theory is it's because reggae was so mainstream in the UK that maybe they were hearing that, and that's like super, super bass driven in a way that nothing a white person in America would have heard would have been.
I was going to say they're probably more on the like, I'm a rock and roller. I got a rock guitar.
You have the one that's nobody fucks with, gives a fucking shit about. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't get any fucking hot chicks or nothing with that.
With that, yeah. You better have a big dick playing that guitar with only 4 strings.
And this, I think this is a solid record, but I think Death Church kind of expands on it. But also, I have my detractions with Death Church, which we'll get to. But I have more reviews. I have some more delicious reviews.
Farce?
Are these from the Losers?
This is from the Losers.
Okay.
Loser.com.
Loser.
Review.
I have one.
Review.
I have one. This was really good.
Shithead.opinions.review.com.rate your music.
Guy who's never actually listened to music before. .com. ACAT _84 earlier this year.
You better bleep out their names so that actually no,
fuck
if you wanna,
Nah,
if you
they
wanna
can
fuck with them.
You can't really harass anyone on. This is a
This
good
is a
review.
public website.
No, my
it's a
hope
pu-
would be that they get harassed. I don't want to give them credit, but yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we can get people to like. Is there an option to like downvote these people's reviews and shit?
We probably can. I do that sometimes. 4 stars. So
okay,
it's better than last time. They can recognize that.
is there some stupidity
And
involved?
it's
in
one
this review,
sentence. Nick Blinko took anarcho-punk and put Majora's Mask on it.
What's Majora's
Oh,
Mask?
That's some like Link, Legend of
Legend of
Zelda
Zelda.
shit.
What the fuck does that have to do with anything?
Nothing.
That's
nothing.
That's a review.
I mean, what does that even mean?
Dude, that person doesn't even know. Come on.
This band came in crashing the gates of Vivek, ready to
A Vivek
out of
Ramaswamy.
no, not Ramaswamy. No, the city in Morrowind, the only video game I could name a thing from.
Yeah, it's super epic.
They're ready to take Balmora by storm.
I will say I do want to. We probably should give a shout out to pal Joey, our buddy Joey from Bloated Subhumans, because if you've listened to Rudimentary Peni on YouTube, you probably listened to one of his uploads.
Oh wow!
Really?
He is 1/4 dead on YouTube.
Okay,
That's his
I've listened
channel.
to
Oh, we're
stuff
looking
on
at
his
his
shit
name
before,
right
yeah.
now.
Yeah. So
560K
Wow,
views.
Now, has he monetized his shit or? Because I mean,
probably
560K
not.
views.
I don't think.
mean,
I don't think he has, but
You gotta hit that affiliate marketing, dude. Start selling fucking Blue Chews and shit.
and get
Yeah.
some
get some banner
like some
ads.
legal hemp ads or something.
Start get a like affiliate who sells keychains, and if you can have a promo code, and then you get
Like picture frames you can sell.
you get tokens.
But great.
Cam Soda.
Great taste and great channel. I'd highly recommend if you want to listen to any weirder.
1/4 dad, is that what you called it?
Yes, I mean, and if you believe it, that is a Rudimentary Peni song.
First track on Death
First
Church.
track on Death Church.
Good opener.
So yes, that's all I have. The great review for Death Church or Farce.
For a guy who actually
Force.
just seemed like he wanted to like bring up a Legend of Zelda video game for some reason.
Dude, I don't. It's really like that. Like the rate your music thing. This is pretty typical punk. That is on. I mean, I saw someone post a review for the Sonic Crime Therapy by Gizm. Someone said that.
Wait, what?
And it's like, what the fuck are you even talking about? Yeah, this is a pretty standard.
Is
punk
that the
thing.
one where like there's a free jazz song in the beginning?
Yeah, it's the beginning, and like I guess you could say some of the riffs are like kind of generic sounding, but it sounds.
I mean, it's
like
not. I wouldn't call it like generic.
I wouldn't call it generic at all, like because it sounds. The record itself sounds insane. It's like probably one of the most like actually blown out like sounding records ever. Like,
yeah, it
Oh,
sounds
that entire
legitimately
thing
blown
had
out.
to have
Yeah.
like been in the rad.
It's
Yeah.
so fucking loud. It's ridiculous. But now we're going to 1983, a record a year with this band, which is kind of impressive
Yeah,
because after this we have a bit of a drop off.
we have a hiatus. Yeah,
Did they actually go on like full on hiatus, or was this just like they had other stuff, or they were just like taking their time?
so they had several hiatuses. I know one of them, or I know they went on hiatus both because of Nick Blinko's schizoaffective disorder, which if you didn't know, he has that, and Grant Matthews got cancer.
Oh, jeez.
And I want to say though that hiatus was after Cacophony, before their tour. Let me check my notes here. In the mid 80s, after Death Church, before Cacophony, yeah, they had a 4-year hiatus after Grant Matthews, the bass player, was diagnosed with cancer. That's what I thought. Yeah,
Damn.
and then they were kind of on and off after that, both due to Blinko, I think, pursuing artwork and also pursuing being in a mental institution and
Yeah.
trying to get better.
Pursuing that.
Well,
Yeah.
something about we were reading about it earlier. How like it's like the UK Mental Health Act of like 1983 or some shit.
Yeah, they
we
can
were
make
trying to
you-
decipher if that meant like he showed up and they were like, okay, we're keeping you here until you're good, or like they came to his house and were like, you have to come with us.
I could probably figure it out while we listen to maybe some Death Church shit.
That's kind of crazy if they do that. I mean, that makes sense. I mean,
England, right? That totally
put it
sounds like some
past them.
shit England would. They're all about like being 1984 motherfuckers.
Eating your pudding or something. Putting where you having your mash. You're going in the clink.
Your peas. You left your peas on the plate.
The crazy bin.
So it does sound like the Mental Health Act. It appears to me, and I will, as we're listening to some other musical samples, try to correct that. It sounds like it is for if whether you go somewhere for treatment or if otherwise I don't think they can go to your house and detain you just because they think you're crazy. But, like, if they're there, if there's an emergency and they think you're crazy, or if you go to a hospital because you think you're crazy and then you decide you're not crazy and they think you still are, they can detain you. As is often the case with British law and our law, which is largely derivative of theirs in terms of the philosophy on it. There's the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law, right?
Yeah.
British common law that our shit is based on is kind of deliberately vague, so that it can be interpreted, so that the law can remain in place without being changed, and judges can interpret it as they see fit. There's upsides and downsides to that. The upside is like there's flexibility for different situations, different conditions over the years and whatever. In the other legal tradition, not that I'm an expert on this stuff, but this is in contrast to the German legal tradition, which is that the law is exactly as it's written. And it has to be exactly like that.
Wow.
There were guys who like wanted to be Nazis. Like they were totally on board with how bad the Jews were, but they were opposed to the Nazi party because they were like, you guys are going to break the law. So we can't do it.
Jeez. Let's listen to...
I really want to do the Holocaust, but I can't because it's illegal.
Dude, that is like... That's so...
The Mental Health Act...
That's a lot of people. I wouldn't say that's a lot of people, but it's a shocking amount of people that's like the same people where it's like, listen, like, it's illegal to do the thing, so I don't do it. And it's like, that's what's stopping you, not like your general morality.
Yeah.
Like if rape was legal, not to be triggering, you would be cool with it. It's freaking legal, dude.
Yeah.
Like... that it's the same people that like now smoke weed because it's legal. It's just like you could have been doing it. Like I get it in maybe that sense, and like
it makes it more convenient.
It's now more convenient to access it.
Like I'm more likely to smoke weed or buy it at the weed store next to Wendy's.
Yes, but like if the only thing was stopping you was simply that it was not written in law that you could do so. You have dubious morals at best. I think that's just my take. But
okay, so I do want to read about the UK Mental Health Act. Now I'm curious. Now I'm spinning on that, but we'll get to that in a minute. So yeah, Death Church is on. It was on Corpus Christi Records, same label that released one of our favorites, the Crucifix Dehumanization LP. This was a label founded by some of the members of Crass, and they're. This is just from Wikipedia. I didn't do a deep dive on Corpus Christi for this, but it started by some members of Crass and their recording engineer and business partner, John Loader. The whole purpose of the label, and this tracks with this and Crucifix being on the label, there were records they wanted to release that didn't quite fit with being on Crass Records, because that is a super particular thing with a super particular aesthetic. But they wanted other things where they're like, we like this. It's somewhat politically aligned with us, maybe. Like Icons of Filth was on Corpus Christi.
That makes sense.
They were definitely in a narco band, but they're like heavier sounding than Crass. They're not as experimental. So this is like a subsidiary label or a secondary label to Crass Records. So it's probably a smart move moving them over to that.
Do we have a track in mind?
I might have. I had a few potential choices. Okay. I like Slimy Member, and I like Radio Schizo, and I also like Flesh Crucifix. Those are all pretty good. I would say Flesh Crucifix or Slimy Member. Either one would be pretty good.
Let's do Flesh Crucifix. Go like later half of the record too.
Flesh Crucifix. I wrote that one has kind of flashes of some of the stuff we start to hear on Cacophony. So I think that's probably a good one.
Yeah, let's listen to Flesh Crucifix.
One thing that that actually caught me off guard when we were, going through these records, it really surprised me how short all of their songs are.
Yes, they can have some really short
of brevity.
Songs.
Yeah,
and you actually kind of heard how that kind of works because you just heard 2 songs.
Yeah, back
we
to back.
played both Flesh Crucifix and Slimy Member
combined, probably both under 2 minutes.
About 2 minutes, I think.
So, bands that that came after this that I would surmise were inspired by them, perhaps, or just they're doing a similar kind of creepy, spooky style. They don't usually do that. Like if I was writing a song with a spooky bass line like that, I'd be like, it should be 2 minutes long, and maybe I'd be wrong. So I guess fuck me, right?
Maybe they knew something.
Maybe they knew something. Maybe I'm not as smart as they are, but god damn it, I'm trying.
I think this is...
We can't all be... What's the guy's name? Cat... A_cat thing?
No. A-Cat 9069.
No, that's the guy that said it's Majora's Mask.
Oh, wait.
He gave it 4 stars.
Oh, okay. Wait. Who's the genius who gave it 2?
Kiss Me in the Gutter.
Who
probably liked this record. Who probably likes this record.
He kept saying that.
I can get it. I can understand maybe where you're coming from because this has this record has kind of a more sinister kind of vibe to it.
For sure.
I think is also helped by the insane artwork.
Yeah, the artwork looks scarier for sure.
The artwork looks very claustrophobic and scary. This is probably their most sinister. If you're going to use the word sinister, this is their most sinister sounding record.
I would say so.
This is the one that I think leads, some people to, I don't know if this is a common thing, but I hear this band's name come up in discussions of death rock.
Yeah.
To which I would say this is definitely not a death rock band, but I could get why their name would come up.
Yeah.
Because if you, I guess I agree. I don't, or even I've seen them with goth and I think maybe even and we said anarcho,
post punk, maybe even
post punk, but I would say hardcore punk and just punk in general is kind of just how I would describe them. Also, they just kind of sound like them. They are a kind of unique band, despite some of this stuff seemingly, if you just took a chunk out of it, like, or a song, it doesn't seem that.
It definitely
crazy.
has some things in common with Deathwreck, though. I mean, when we talked about Christian Death, I didn't see any evidence that they were inspired by Rudimentary Peni. I think in parallel, Roz and company just reached some similar conclusions.
Yeah.
Because we've got very prominent bass line playing something very uneasy sounding. We have, on the first song we listened to, kind of some weird, ominous effects coming in. I think there's like an overdub vocal that's like a little bit lower pitch or something to that effect. It's got some of his weird vocal stuff happening. And just sort of a general like shadowy, morose, uneasy feel.
Lugubrious.
Some very minor key, lugubrious. And even the prominent, because thankfully for that guy, once again we can tell them apart. There's a very prominent bass line driving the melody, and then the way the guitar sounds. It's that second song especially did remind me of Christian Death quite a bit. But like Christian Death weren't self-consciously a death rock band either. No one tried to do that. That's just what people called it when these people were all doing similar things.
Yes, as it usually works out. Like I think with like this stuff and the Farce record and the later stuff, I'm not saying it's noise rock per se, but it fundamentally kind of works in a similar way, in where the drums and the bass are very much like the driving force, and kind of keeping this track steady, while Nick kind of is able to kind of be unhinged in a way
and ramble on.
The vocals, I get
do his crazy vocals at times, and his guitar playing isn't like, because it's the guitar, I believe, from what I remember, even though it was like earlier today that I was listening to this, it's a little bit more pushed back, and like it's not like the first record where it's like more up front and kind of like in your face, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's like the vocals are the personality. The guitar and this is how there's other punk records of this era you say, but the guitar is almost just like texture in this, more than anything,
which is cool.
Yeah, it's cool. I think that's more often, not always by any stretch, but statistically, I would say more often than not, that's the right thing for a guitar to do on a punk record. It's not fucking Van Halen. Like I don't want my guitar to be like always way up front.
It's not Kurt Cobain or anything.
No, it's not Kurt Cobain.
Kurt Cobain's. So I have some incredible reviews for this one.
Okay, lay it on.
Joy Division Oven Gloves from 2020 gave it 5 stars.
That's a funny username. I gotta give
Joy Division Oven Gloves.
Yeah.
Okay. This is an absolute...
Not calling them oven mitts is funny. Calling them oven gloves is like a very clueless thing to do, I assume on purpose.
Very Gen Z coded.
Yeah.
This is an absolute blast from start to finish. Raw death rock punk with some amazing riffs. Hidden gem. That's hilarious. I mean, it's hilarious to call this band a
hidden gem.
It's not
a hidden gem. Not really.
I mean, it was on Puzzhead's top 100 records of the 80s, right?
No, the first EP was.
Oh, okay.
But this is like a classic.
This record is, if anything, more well known, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it's hidden if you're. I'm not even trying to sound like a hot shot, but if you are still on like starter punk phase, then this is hidden. Yeah. This isn't like the first punk record you ever hear about, but it might be in my era, as we discussed. Like when I was coming up, it just kind of was, and it's one of the first punk records that like people talked to me about, it seemed to like or whatever. One of the first couple years of people telling me about bands, I heard about this, and listening to it more, I'm more and more like, that's crazy, like, because this is a weird record. I like it, but
I have 2 more.
Okay.
This next guy comes up on the next album too, The Vigilante King. This is from 2015.
That name sounds familiar. I feel like he used that username somewhere else. I've seen his shit.
2 stars. Weirdo punk, in quotes, and is it quotes? Yeah, in quotes. That isn't even weird. Line break. Or good.
I only listen to Merzbow.
Dude,
listen to.
I should pull up his.
I only listen to the Merzbow.
See what he has for.
But that's really. It's like that isn't even weird.
Well, I wish he would have like
Or
left like a
good.
reference. Like, well, what's like a weird punk that's actually weird?
Yeah, what could it be? I don't even.
I mean, like,
know.
I'm curious.
What is weirdo punk? What does that even mean? Like, again? That's like the thing where it's
fuel,
or like is Rudimentary Peni weren't like, we're a weirdo punk band, guys.
No, I mean,
you know what I mean. Like,
that's not how. I mean, we just talked. I think this is going to come out.
How it works.
This is going to come out right after the Outsider Music episode. Like, that's never how a real weirdo does it.
Except for God's Computer.
God's Computer,
Who
Captain Beefheart,
is the
I guess.
only person who describes himself as a what is it? Outsider music legend.
And yeah.
And like normally, I think we were talking in the group chat, and I was like, I think that disqualifies you, generally speaking, if you like consider yourself an outsider music. But I think you put it pretty nicely in that, like, when you're writing like multiple paragraphs about your own band and how weird it is and how outsider you are, it kind of actually goes. It just goes
it
full
overlaps.
circle.
Yeah, it does like a total 360 back to being
the horseshoe
completely outside.
Yeah, you traverse the horseshoe of complete derangement. To especially having met, I mean, for real, shout out to that guy. I met him. He was super nice and
Computer
seemed.
God.
I met him. We played with him. I met him, and he seemed super normal and was really, really nice. Just a sweet guy from, I believe, Kansas.
Huh.
Last review. Some of the worst mixing I've heard from Tommy Is Not. 2 stars.
This was mixed by that John Loder guy from Corpus Christi.
I don't know exactly what to make of this. There's a lot of cool ideas, but also a lot of poorly executed stuff. Starting with the positives, I think the songwriting was solid here. Pretty generic punky stuff, but decent riffing and lyricism nonetheless. I liked the bass a lot. I think it's an easy standout piece of this album. If I had want to pin one member as the talent of the band, it'd be the bassist. Now on to the negatives. This is beyond poorly produced. I like lo-fi, but this is lo-fi in an unfinished way. The guitars sound terrible, the vocals are way too quiet, the bass, although awesome, is so overpowering. The mix just makes no sense. I also did not like this vocalist. He is really not very good at all. Finally, the album drags hard. The first half is sick, but moving into the second half, I just wanted it to be over. The style would be much more suited for a shorter EP. All in all, this is a decent idea with some good songwriting ruined by poor production. Overall, 4.5 out of 10. Favorite track, Vampire State Building. Which I think is probably a fun play on Empire State Building.
Yes, that is a good song. That guy, the mix is fine. Whatever about the mix. Like normally,
I mean, I just don't it's like what do they think people are gonna get from like a punk band from 1983?
This is the thing.
I mean, to be fair, on this same label in 1983, I guess you could get Crucifix Dehumanization, but
I thought that was a year later. No, that was 83.
83, yeah.
Right.
But like,
That doesn't sound like that much better.
Well, this is the thing.
Depends
what you mean by better. Like, in some ways, I would argue, yes, it absolutely does. But also, like, I don't want Rudimentary to Peni to fucking sound like that. Like, the Crucifix record is some of my favorite production on punk record. It sounds great. You can hear everything clearly. It's big, booming guitars and ripping bass and the drums.
But again, that makes sense because it's like a D-beat record.
A whole bunch of shit that you would never want to do for this.
No.
Like what? It's literally like the Crucifix record sounds like they successfully kind of tried to make it sound like Motorhead almost. Like, yeah, let's make Rudimentary Peni sound like the fucking Ace of Spades. Like, why on earth would I do that?
Yeah, that doesn't check out.
So with that in mind, that reviewer did correctly identify that
this could be a little bit shorter.
It could be shorter, but I would also note this band has excellent lyrics, in my opinion.
Yes,
and
like,
also
really good.
Do people just say like generic if they think it means like bad or something too?
I don't know, dude. I don't really know because
That's
I don't know what it
seems
means.
like.
I don't know what you mean by generic, like for the most part. When you're talking about a band like this, you know what I mean? It's not like this isn't your local band that's playing a generic like UK 82 or like a D-beat song. I know what that would sound like.
I think people just if they hear something and they can't, and because this is what I think they're looking for. They're like, where's the part that doesn't fit with the genre that I know they're in? And if they don't find that, they say it's generic. It's fucking stupid. They're not actually listening to the whatever.
I think a lot of these rate your music people are like on their holy grail quest to be like, I want to find the stuff that is all like 100% original.
And it's just like, that doesn't exist, but also it's like, just listen to the fucking song and like enjoy the song, and you know what, like I
mean, I could show them some stuff that's pretty original. I don't think they'd like that either.
I mean, if you mix Gregorian chanting with like surf rock, Link Ray kind of, and then like throw like a little dash of like bait, it's like that's gonna sound like complete dog shit. You know?
No, people just don't have. Well, also, what I was gonna say is anyone born past like 1999, or maybe like 2001. Anyone who was born after the 9/11 thinks that like the world exists. Like they heard the quote from the time is a flat circle, and they thought, oh, okay, so literally everything happens at the same time, and everyone is aware of everything at the same time, and the internet always existed apparently, and like that's why it's like, and they don't actually believe this, but it's like when some of their mentalities where it's like, well, why didn't it sound like this? It's like, dude, no one knew what the fuck they were doing back then. And like also there was no budgeting for recording an album necessarily. It wasn't like they were like, oh man, this album sounds bad. You know what I mean? It was just like, we did it, it's mixed, all right, I guess this is how it sounds. Like, you know, for the most part, like obviously there's creative control, but it wasn't nearly as like itemized and like looked at, like pinned down as it is nowadays. And I think like younger people, because this record is from, this review I said is from like a year ago, probably a younger person if they're on Rate Your Music, like they just don't understand why would their production be like that? And it's like, I don't know, man, maybe they didn't even really have a choice because it was 1983.
So one thing that person said that was correct is regarding the lyrics. I would like to read some of the songs are short. Yeah. Which also I like. It makes it feel more like I'm reading a poem. So for the one we just heard, Slimy Member, this one grabbed me. I think that's why I made a note of it, was the lyrics and that bass line. So, quote, grind your bones to make their bombs. Nothing so slimy as a member or obscene as the prime cut. The real chaos merchant, severed heads of state. Masters of disasters with jingo and jargon, juggling with our jugulars. The Iron Lady cried, the people came to see, the rust blow down the street, morbid crowd.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's awesome. It's the brevity of the songs helps. It's like the lyrics are, and the songs where it's just one phrase is the extreme of this. It's like these little fragments of images that they had. Yeah, and you're just getting a little bit of it, and on this record, similarly to the first one, especially the intertwine. I think this is the best example. This is probably the best lyrics on any of their records because they really are intertwining their kind of spooky, whatever, probably realistically speaking, hallucinations Blinko was having potentially. Although, no, that's unfair because they were also big fans of H.P. Lovecraft. That becomes a huge part of this band. They're mixing that with the politics in a way that can seem disjointed elsewhere in their discography, maybe, sort of, in the record before this, I guess. But on this record, I think it really works. So, Vampire State Building, that's another good one. Quote, what's that festering grotesque over there in a wheelchair, stifled in a straitjacket, self-inflicted safety pin, wounds. Is it punkoid, devoid, schizoid, mumbling? Vampire State Building is crumbling.
Man, unquote. That's how I try and write my lyrics. Yeah. Is because they seem pretty devoid of talking about stuff that I think in general one would consider really stupid, like your personal problem. No, I always kind of go back to Minor Threat and just complaining about their friends and people they know. And my feelings and you, as you pointed out, they do
pronouns.
So many pronouns. Yeah. I hate pronouns. That's what I mean when I say I hate pronouns.
It's your fucking punk band's lyrics. Yeah.
Yeah. I try to, in our band Hallucination, realize I try to avoid almost using them completely.
Yeah.
Because I'm not saying them, so like for the most part, so it's like it's weird for me to tell someone to say you or me.
No, I mean you.
I.
You.
Yeah, I like it when in that song, but
yeah.
But also it's just like it's kind of like a little cliched and like kind of it can lead to some really boring things, and also like it's like how I don't also like swearing in like writing lyrics too. I think
swearing you have to do it sparingly. There's swears on this record and they work really well because they're like it's like you mentioned that song "Rotten to the Core." That's a good one, and so generally speaking, the lyrics are like they're very rich with imagery, which I think is like the first thing you should do with lyrics is like evoke something, and you can tell that it means something and there is a message, but it's like open to interpretation to a degree, which I like. But that also means when they do something like a swear word, it bites harder, or especially on Rotten to the Core where they swear and they call out Joe Strummer and John Lydon by name.
Yeah.
And it's jarring because it's so different. It's not as ambiguous as the other lyrics, but doing things like that, kind of doing the stupid thing, you can not only get away with it, but it can be very effective as long as you don't do it all the time. Mm-hmm. Like, and then it works a little better. But so lyrics great on this record. It is a little too long. And when I was saying earlier, I was listening to this like on the way to work or something, and like kind of like, oh, man, I don't like this record that much. But then when I like sat in my basement at ease and listened to it, I liked it a lot. So this is definitely a got to be in the mood kind of record, and that mood is probably one. It feels very morose and uneasy, which is why I would probably want to listen to it when I'm in a good mood.
This is like one of those records you pick it up, you look at it, and you say to it, "Hey baby, it's 7:45, and I feel I'm in the mood."
That's what I'm always saying about this record. I'm hearing that more and more lately.
Yeah, I mean, because like if you compare it to the first two records, which are like 12 and 14 minutes long, they're pretty short, full sound on those records for a 7-inch, but like they have like an end point, like, and just as I said, like I feel like this is kind of like in between those two records, like taking ideas from both of them, expanding on them. But it's there's not like really like Rotten to the Core is like 3 minutes long. I know there's not a lot of there's long songs, so 21 songs kind of makes it hard to remember. And after a certain point, the stop start of a song can be like it's just like you kind of go, man, is this still going on?
This one, in contrast to the first two, like this shit does get stuck in my head, but it not songs. It's like I'll have a bass line or a part stuck in my head. I think the super short songs and the sort of disjointed quality isn't bad, but it does lead to where like this record blurs together and then I have little parts of it stuck in my head, whereas I'll get fucking Teenage Time Killer stuck in my head like as a song.
I've had Her stuck in my head.
It's another one.
Like, and fucking Sacrifice stuck in my head. So like, but yes, this is more heading towards like a vibe kind of bass record.
Totally, yeah.
Which and like a record you listen to like every song, and just put it on.
Right.
Which is some bands are really good for that. Like tons of bands where I listen to it, and you probably listen to it, listeners, where I may not remember every song. I may not have like a single from the song that I like or several, but the record I think is great.
That's literally more or less exactly what I said about the record "See You in Hell" by Grim Reaper earlier today, and Tim can attest to this. Yes. Not a joke.
Yeah,
I looked them up on Spotify and I saw that they only had a best of, and I said very sincerely, no, I want to listen to that whole album all the way through.
I need the rest of the songs.
I don't want to just hear the couple
classic
songs. No, I want to hear the whole thing.
We like remember I think we were on tour, Tim, or something like that. We listened to that record.
I've done that so many times.
It's just like, man, this record kind of sucks, but it's also sick.
I've done that and I'm not going to say hundreds of times, but probably 100 times in my life.
That's a good amount there.
Now, speaking of vibe, well, I think we've decided that we're going to do two parts, and our listeners, if you're a Patreon member, you will be able to hear part 2.
Yes,
and we'll probably do this more with some bands because they have first of all, I thought they had a much shorter discography when I first
they like just did a record.
Yeah.
They put out like a bunch of records.
But a lot of EPs, which is very nice. But more records than I thought, and some of these kind of go on to we're just covering the classic stuff in this. We'll say the classic era, basically the 80s stuff.
The 80s stuff, because Pope Adrian is kind of a classic. People like it. But we're going to cover it
that just got
separately.
reissued, and I've seen a bunch of
stuff's
people,
all getting reissued, yeah.
I've seen people fucking raving about this one because it's like a super underrated RP record. But the last one we're going to end the episode with is Cacophony, which, in terms of vibe-based records, this is like when they transition into, I think, that kind of a band.
Full-blown outsider music.
Yes.
Yeah.
Period.
Although it also has catchy parts.
Yes.
It's catchy parts, whether or not they're catchy as songs. So this record, which I believe we all pretty much agreed is probably our favorite of theirs, or at least we like it more than Death Church. Like, this is after a 4-year hiatus where Grant Matthews was battling cancer. I'm not sure what the rest of the, like I said, these guys are not guys who do a lot of interviews, but that I do know the cancer thing was what was happening there. And they came back from a hiatus to do a record which is 100% inspired by the works of H.P. Lovecraft, author everybody's probably heard of, but to give it a little bit of context, much of Lovecraft's work concerns, he's a horror writer, and specifically the horrors in his work, I'm a fan of his writing as well. They tend to be like ancient horrors that are so, even like perceiving them like destroys the human mind, because even gazing upon them is like a horror beyond comprehension. That's what's kind of cool and unique about Lovecraft's work, is it kind of centers around the that psychological aspect of like, I can't even comprehend the totality of the monstrous thing that I'm looking at.
I'm wondering if Nick, if you're hearing this, or maybe other members of the other guys.
Yeah, Matthews, they were all huge fans of Lovecraft.
Let me know if you guys are fans of the PlayStation 4 game Bloodborne, because that's very Lovecraftian inspired.
Gotta love it, probably. And it's worth noting, because people focus on Blinko a lot, rightfully so. He's an amazing artist, and but I think there was kind of a transition in terms of songwriting. Like, Grant Matthews wrote most of those early songs, and I think continued to write quite a few of their songs. I got to double check that. But Blinko got more involved with songwriting as time went on, I believe, at least in terms of lyrics.
I can believe that with some of the stuff. But, I mean, this is where I think like I said, like, Grant and John are like really holding the band down.
Yeah.
And kind of letting, I guess, maybe not letting, but Nick is kind of able to be like, maybe not even Nick, they are kind of able to be like kind of unhinged.
They are cutting loose on this record.
Yeah.
This is they are in their Pink Floyd era. But the songs are still short. It's amazing. I guess they just like short songs.
There's 30 songs on this fucking record, which is insane.
That's a whole bunch.
The song that I've been getting stuck in my head is the Night Gaunts, which is the first song. I'm trying to think, because it's hard, because again, there's 30 songs on this. It's hard to remember what song is a song and what song is just some weird shit that kind of goes on. But also there's songs where,
as they would call it on like a rap
there's songs
record.
where it starts as that and it's like a minute long song, and then there's a minute of like what many people would consider nonsense.
They should have done it like a rap record, like where they have it in parentheses, so it would say like American Anglophile and the world turned upside down. Skit. The old man is not so terribly misanthropic. Skit.
I feel like Lovecraft Baby is one of those songs where it's like both, if I'm remembering.
Then that would
or The Only Child.
That would be a good one. Only Child, I know, was like released as a preview single for the what's it called, the reissue. We could try. So we're gonna play one of the two songs we just mentioned, and then we're gonna talk about it.
Okay,
and that's what we're gonna do.
Sounds good.
the arguments. In today's coons, we had a psychologist, a guru, an athlete, a freak, a scientist, a dictator, an anarchist, a mesmer, a composer, a human vegetable, and a complete outsider. Let's open the discussion with you. What gives that look of revelation on the athlete's face? A complete outsider is the center of attention. Just what is a human vegetable doing in psychology? The freak is eating a mass murderer. Oh my god, terrifying. This is a reality in our position. They're in being opened up to snow. This is the worst thing that's happened to mankind. And in the studio, the voltage for a new dark age, but your commentator has got his eyes smiling.
So that was the one we settled on was this track, The Evil Clergyman from Rudimentary Peni's Cacophony, which doesn't... you know what? Maybe in post, we should play Only Child and that. All the songs are short. I think that makes sense to me.
We could do... Yeah, we could.
It makes sense. Cause
so this is going to be a little bit of a longer episode, but I think it
Legacy of
requires that, I think.
Yeah, because Only Child, that one you get to hear really good Blinko singing vocals.
Yeah.
And that one you get to hear the thing they keep doing that we keep talking about that I'm sorry, but to experience you really just have to listen to the record where they play what sounds like a fragment of a song that's pretty cool. And then there's something that sounds like nonsense. And it gets weirder than this. This is like a relatively normal one.
Yeah.
It's just like a skit. It's a skit.
Like the ones where they do kind of more like the pleep plop, fleeple floppo, like that
they
kind
do
of
that a
stuff.
lot.
Yeah, I think like I said, the first song, Night Gaunts, like kind of has that vibe to it. And it's like a minute, not even a minute long. So it's just like, oh man, this is kind of weird. And like I do like that Nick Blinko is confirmed trans, because he says I'm a little girl like 400 times.
It's great. Yeah.
So we're gonna. He's not dead yet. So I guess I was gonna say it's not like a Kurt Cobain thing.
Kurt Cobain.
Yeah.
People are calling.
Excuse me.
Kurt Cobain her.
Wait, we were just talking about that.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
It's fucking stupid. I don't give a fuck about fucking bunch of people on the fucking internet want to talk about Kurt Cobain like his fucking.
It's like when you can look at his diaries.
Fucking diaries didn't get published.
Absolutely
it's like,
nothing about
it's
that.
Really?
Yeah.
I can. Oh man, I can believe. Listen. I have trans friends, and I know a lot of trans people, and I understand like gender ideology and like the rigid gender structures that we've lived in over the last, we'll say, 100 years, especially in America and the West in general. It can be a little maybe suffocating at times, but like we don't have to like. I don't know. It's just like sometimes it's like I think you should like find a hobby or something.
Well, and bottom line for me is I know more about Kurt Cobain than he ever wanted anyone to know about Kurt Cobain.
For
Yeah,
sure.
that
So
sucks
like,
for him.
so he fucking killed himself.
It's
So
like,
like, I'm not gonna sit here and fucking speculate about shit that we don't know about him. Like, he fucking made some great music, and I'm not even like a Nirvana super fan. I like it, but whatever. He made some very important music regardless. Like, that's what he would fucking probably want you to fucking concern yourself with, and probably not fucking concern yourself with any fucking thing else.
The guy's probably just like, hey, can I rest in peace when I die, please?
Please,
Guys, leave me alone. Yeah, we need an AI Kurt Cobain to just go, guys, please leave me alone.
We need him to come back, like he comes back as a ghost, but he's like, I don't know. Yeah, it'd be funny if he was like, I don't know, like the complete opposite of like what he, like a freaking like a
he acts
monster truck driving.
Or he acts exactly like Mike the Situation from the Jersey
yeah,
Shore.
he's like, bro, you all need to chill.
The AI coders did a prank. They like put fucking the Situation's brain in Kurt Cobain's body and unleashed it on Coachella.
Right, was like, Kurt, why are you acting like that?
Kurt, why are you doing that with your
isn't how you're
fist?
supposed to act.
You're supposed to Smells Like Teen Spirit, and you're just playing fucking
being
bad
mean.
techno music.
Calling everybody a grenade here.
Yeah, calling everybody a grenade. Why did you call Courtney a grenade? You loved her so much.
Jesus, goddamn.
I mean, not to date ourselves with that. With that.
Oh no, most of the people who listen to this are even older than we are, but they're like, "Who's Mike the Situation?" Is that like the Fonz? No, I'm just kidding, guys. I'm just fucking with you. I'm just fucking with you. No, speaking of AI, the skit at the end of that song, which I assume concerns the Lovecraft book, The Evil Clergyman, which I haven't actually read, but that kind of sounded like a text-to-speech, which is crazy because I know that it wasn't. Like, that's just them doing something funny with their voices.
Yeah, it's very weird. It's very weird shit on
and
this
we
record.
showed you the most normal songs because they're like the most enjoyable ones, maybe. It gets a lot more Sid Barrett-y if you're familiar with any of his stuff.
Yeah.
Musically, this is very much in the same vein as, and I don't know what their influences other than H.P. Lovecraft were at this point. I think at this point this band, because keep in mind, we've mentioned no lineup changes because there weren't any.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I
Which
think
is
they're
super
all
nice
still
for us.
playing together.
yeah.
To some degree, yeah.
So at this point, they would have firmly been at the sweet spot you get to if you're a good band, where like you're not thinking about like, should we make this sound like this thing we like or this other thing? Like, they just sound how they sound. It does happen to land very much in the like death rock, gloomy post-punk, goth. Like, if you're a fan of any of that kind of shit, you're probably already a fan of this band. But if you're not, then this record might be a good one to start with, honestly, if the Lovecraft thing didn't sell you already.
Yeah. I have some great reviews. First one, I have two. Punchline 1001, September 30th, 2020. 1 star. What on earth happened? It's all in all caps. The first album was great, but this album is the polar opposite. Cacophony is a very unfocused album. There's a whole song where Nick Blinko just says da 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 over and over again.
Well,
How people even consider this album a masterpiece, I haven't a clue.
I mean, it's not like it's called Cacophony for a reason.
This is like the person who wrote that is like the opposite kind of moron from the first guy. Like, these are like the guys the people who, because dude, I never even heard of this album until we started preparing for this episode. Everyone just, when I was talking to the punkers growing up and looking at their patches and looking at their MySpace pages, everyone just said Death Church, and Farce. Those two records. That's what everybody told me to check out. Nobody even mentioned this.
Yeah.
And now I know why. Not because it's bad.
Because it's because their peanut brains just can't handle
They
it.
can't handle fucking real
they
freak
can't
shit.
handle outsider shit.
This is real shit. But you know what? It's well done. Like, they can fucking play. They can write a riff.
Yeah.
His vocals on that Only Child song are really good. Like, they're fucking, you could, if any of us saw some fucking punk band play and the singer did that, we'd be like, that band had a really good singer.
Like, if we actually saw like a band live where they went like da 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 da.
I mean, yes, we would.
I mean,
be
I
awesome.
would love that.
It would be so sick. I watched, this is kind of
Not that we would have
tangential,
seen this band. They like didn't play hardly, but
I watched Weezer do a cover of the Sweater song on like Letterman, and they did like
Wait,
the
a cover, even though it's their
no.
own song.
And that's okay. My bad. They covered their own song, Spider song, but in that song they have like the people in that song. There's like people like at a party talking.
Yeah,
and they like did it live on this like performance.
How did they do all that?
They were just like talking on the mics.
Oh, that's
like,
cool.
But like, it's like damn, this is like a perfectly done rendition of the song, doing something that I wouldn't have expected them to do in '94 when they were just kind of getting started.
Yeah.
Also, that band does have like such an insanely heavy guitar tone.
It is.
Oh,
it
yeah,
sounds
it's
great.
loud.
Ridiculous.
Sounds fantastic. Yeah.
But so that was a good old punchline. But our good friend, the Vigilante King,
What's he think of this?
coming back 2 stars.
I thought he was going to like this one.
No, because you know what it is?
Isn't he the dude who? Which one did he like?
He didn't like any.
You're
he
thinking
didn't
of like
anything.
the first record.
So
the
he
guy.
doesn't like this band.
He says on Farce or Death Church, he said it was weirdo punk that isn't even weird or good.
Okay, what's he say about this?
This one is even worse. Mediocre punk rock with a bunch of wacky, needless interludes. So basically, the punk equivalent of C Momentum's Request Service Bum. Circumspice, which
Okay,
is
you know what that is.
That's
Wait,
an,
he's talking about a black metal band.
he's talking
right?
about a Death Spell Omega album
Oh, this
that came out 16 years later.
and
That's
also
not. First of all, that's not how you do something. That's like being like,
Oh wait, he's comparing the two, being like
this
it's-
is exactly like this Family Guy episode. What the fuck are you talking
the
about?
Boss
you
Baby
fucking
guy who's
moron?
only seen the movie Boss Baby, watching a second movie like, I'm getting a real Boss Baby vibe from this.
Yeah,
No.
for real.
All
That-
you needed to tell me about this guy is like black metal, and that's
He said-
all I need. So this is a black metal guy and rate your music.
No, I don't know if
That's
he's
all
a. I don't know. No, I don't know. I don't think he is a black
he might
metal
just
guy.
be a pretentious.
But he said so.
fella.
Basically, the punk equivalent of a Death Spell Omega album,
Oh,
which
I see.
I would never consider to be.
Oh, he's actually saying that's
that
not
album is
good.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But also,
but
it's
I
like,
feel like if he's heard of Death Spell Omega, he probably likes black metal.
dude, nah,
He
not
could be- he
necessarily.
could just
Not rate your
be-
music fans.
Yeah.
Not with the needle drop. You know,
I
being
don't
a
fuck
thing
with
the
these
last
fucking
10 years
people,
ago.
man.
You know,
I don't know
these
how
people.
these people think.
I don't know how they think.
well, because now there is like a contingency of people who are just into music, but they don't actually. And again, I'm not trying to like be mean to like young people, but I swear to God, rate your music people, especially younger people. I don't think they listen to
To
the
be fair,
things they
I don't
talk
think we
about.
know how old any of these people are.
If you're on
can
Rate Your
check their
Music,
profiles.
if you're on Rate Your Music, you're probably younger or you're
Nah, see,
mentally deranged.
I thought rate your music. Rate your music. I thought was more of a millennial thing.
I think it's
I think it
millennial
was,
and
but
Gen
now,
Z.
yeah.
It's very
Gen Zs are on there
Z
now?
and like Gen Alpha.
Yeah.
But once again, just like every shitty thing that maybe it sounds like we're blaming Gen Z for, anything like that we complain about. Let me be clear that we started it, millennials. It all the bad
Right, with
things
the
started
whole,
with
like,
us.
like the guy being like, "Oh, Majora's Mask." Guarantee you that's like a
That's
millennial.
millennial.
who said
All
that.
this shit. Like, look, they're anybody younger. They're just learning from the terrible example that we set.
Yep.
That is correct. But no, that is to call this a mediocre punk rock. It's like don't even know what that even means.
This record's pretty. The actual songs, when they're not doing the interludes, are pretty like we played two of the spooky ones. There's other ones that are like in a major key and remind me of like the noise rock thing. I hadn't thought of that, but you're totally right. Like I can hear some of that amphetamine reptile like fucking
I guess
or
like
butthole
I'm thinking of, like,
even
No
kind of
Trend
sound.
and stuff.
Yeah,
like that,
that's
where
there
it's,
too.
like, kind of like very pretty abrasive, but not like maybe on like a production side, and it's kind of very repetitive.
So, like there's songs on here
at
that
times.
where the riffs sound like they could be cows riffs if you added a little
Yeah,
cowboy
yeah.
action to them.
Yeah, and I think people should fucking check this album out if they've never heard it. And this is like a Death Church. This is maybe something it's best consumed as a whole.
Absolutely.
Also, I'd say probably much more like a mood/vibe album.
yeah.
Yeah, for 100%. Because like, yeah, there's so many just weird moments on it, but I think it's cool, and it's like you could say it's meaningless and like
It's almost kind of like a movie if you think about it.
I think that was their intent.
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, it's kind of like it's a concept album.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense. I'm sure that person probably is like, To Pimp a Butterfly, 5 out of 5. Like, that's a good album. Like, but this, all the meaningless, weird interludes, like, I don't know. That's just kind of.
Well, people do act like, forget it.
I was
Forget what
going to say anything that isn't like something that can give them like immediate satisfaction, like a song with a riff isn't like worth their time.
Yeah. This record kind of has that though. We just heard riffs.
Yeah, it does.
It's just like they're a little in a disjointed format, but the riffs are certainly there.
People need cut and paste, black and white, square hole, square peg.
I mean, again, that's why like the punk people never told you about this record.
Yeah,
because they probably, if they ever heard it, were like, "This is bad. I'm never going to listen to this."
Yeah,
Well, the Mohawks probably wilted immediately.
The people I'm thinking of,
Studs popped out of their jackets.
We were all young back then. Probably some people grew up and grew to love this album, I have as of now.
Studs popping out and like breaking a glass.
Something they hate so much that like their tattoos like removed from their body or something.
Their tattoo transforms into one of Nick Blinko's fucked up drawings and it eats them. Yeah, it's like a Lovecraft thing.
The ripped jeans
just turns into like a cheeseburger.
A cheeseburger.
No, I didn't have a cheeseburger tattoo. That was a freaking like anarcho symbol.
That was a flaming 8-ball.
That is a really funny nightmare for a person to have, is waking up with suddenly the gayest tattoos in the world.
Right? It's just like, how did I get these?
Just waking up with like a Zelda tattoo and
you got a Majora's Mask tattoo like on your arm.
You've got like Peter Griffin riding a fixed gear motorcycle on your arm instead of like a cool snake.
Yeah, cool snake is one thing.
I want to inflict that on so many people, the thing I just described. Oh, my God.
Instead of the Black Flag bars, you have, like, the Triforce.
Yeah.
I mean, I know people, though, who would be like, oh, that's sick.
Someone with a giant, some, like, hardcore guy with a giant skull tattoo, he just wakes up and it's like, it's the Powerpuff Girls if they did roller derby. Like, I want to do that to someone so bad.
Yeah, Connor, that's my next tattoo.
Yep, all over it.
Start drawing. But we will see you on, if you are a Patreon subscriber, on part 2, where we're going to tackle, if you thought Cacophony was weird,
it's nothing.
Some much weirder shit.
Do we want to maybe wrap up with some like overall thoughts on?
We should, yeah.
Like,
and just a quick note for and then that Patreon episode, I think through that album we're going to get a little more into like some of the story of this band and Blinko's struggles with schizoaffective disorder. And all that kind of stuff, and maybe about his artwork too, because he would be a somewhat important, or I would say fairly important outsider artist, even if he never made like all this fucking music.
Yeah.
Overall thoughts, you guys take it away.
What is overall thoughts and the legacy of Rudimentary Peni? I mean, I think this is a really good band that is difficult to get into their later stuff, but I think it's totally worth it. Lyrically, I think they're like a few steps above like a lot of their contemporaries.
I mean, especially for like English bands, you know.
Yeah. And like stuff that's even on like Crass Records, even though like that stuff I think is also like kind of like sometimes pretty good lyrically. It's like sometimes it's kind of a little, maybe we'll say, generic. In terms of like I'm trying to think of like what their legacy is, like how we can like see it still.
I have some thoughts,
and I think it's just kind of like, I'm trying to think of like,
I think maybe it's like more so like the aesthetic than the music.
Yeah,
because I feel
true.
like bands don't really.
I don't know any band that sounds like Rudimentary Peni.
Not quite. I know they influenced some people outside of like the narrowest definition of punk rock, like Kurt Cobain, who we mentioned is a fan of this band. Butthole Surfers, there's a video somewhere of Gibby Haynes like introducing them at a show.
I mean, Mark Prindle reviewed them on his website.
Mark,
that
kind of does tell you something. I don't know if it was Mudhoney, but maybe people from that kind of noise rock, grunge space, this was a band that people really liked. My theory that I can't prove or even hardly test, but I keep mentioning growing up and knowing people with the back patches and everything. I'm sure lots of our listeners from all over had similar experience. And I'm also sure that some of those same people with those back patches, maybe 5 to 10 years later, they had a Sisters of Mercy back patch or something, or they were like a death rocker or goth, and like those sounds we most certainly hear in lots of contemporary bands.
Yeah.
And I would assume / imagine that like this band would be a great gateway for somebody to go from, I guess, generic punk rock to stuff with spooky, uneasy bass lines and minor key stuff and lyrics about Lovecraft. Like, probably this band, TSOL and Christian Death, would be like your routes to more spooky stuff, for lack of a less stupid way to put it. Those are sounds that like kind of we hear all the time, and maybe they're like one step removed from this, but I can't imagine that this wasn't like kind of a connective tissue there for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think so. I think also, I mean, Dystopia covered Cosmetic Plague.
That too, yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I think that was like a big way for people like our age to probably get into them. They heard that, like, into that, which is weirdly more accessible in a way to maybe some of the stuff.
And I mean, I think another thing, when he just brought it up earlier, it's like going back to the like the visual, the aesthetic of it.
Definitely.
Like, you know, I could see maybe, you know, like Invader Zim, kind of Nightmare Before Elm Street, Nightmare Before Christmas.
The Before Elm Street.
What's his face? Who directed that?
Tim Burton.
Tim Burton kind of core. I can, like the gap between that and like,
because those came out like after that shit.
Yeah, it's kind of like not that hard to straddle it, and like there are tons of people who are into like weird shit aesthetically, and they probably do like it, but if you're a punk, you might not, because of the weird kind of out there.
I mean, it's more like a spooky girl kind of vibe, I think.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, and if anyone's turned off by that a little bit or isn't sure about it, what I would keep in mind is that like Nick Blinko and Rudimentary Peni like landed on that totally on accident. They were just some guys in sweaters with mental problems. Like, they were not trying to be like spooky death rock or any, like, no, dude, like that was
just their vibe.
That was just in his head. Like, it was not like trying to fit into some scene or something. Although they did, I will say, when he listed those influences that we mentioned, we didn't talk about this as much, but he mentioned Early Susies and the Banshees. That's like a proto-goth thing. And he mentioned Part 1, which is a great, great, great death rock band that I think was on Pusshead's label. So they were fucking with some of that stuff, but these were not guys who cared. They barely played shows. They didn't care about fitting in a scene. I somehow doubt that they cared about impressing girls very much. There was just a thing, and it's always interesting to see an artist, like an artist, musician, whatever, kind of just land on something that's close to something that seems maybe all too familiar, but they like didn't mean to do it. I'm always cool to see that.
Yeah, that's the best kind of stuff, where it is like, it's definable, but it's also like undefinable. Like again, I would call them a punk band through and through, more than I would probably call them anything else,
for sure.
But it's not like Blink 182. This isn't fucking.
We heard where they started.
Sex Pistols,
we heard the Maggots. That's where what they started with.
Yeah, it's a kind of a weird place to start. But thank you very much for listening. If you got this far, we appreciate it.
What's the episode at?
About 2 hours, a little over 2 hours.
Okay,
that's not.
But
that
again,
bad.
We had a little bit in the beginning,
we
and
fucked around in the beginning.
Sometimes these episodes are a little bit long. You know, we try and stick to an hour and a half, but whatever.
Hey, for a topic such as this, I mean, I
think legacy ofs will probably run long a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But thank you, everyone. And kingsofpunk.com, Cop Out Official on Instagram, and thanks for everyone who signed up on Patreon. And please do check it out.
Peace.